WWE going to WWE. Welcome, guys, to the Rantin Review Pro Wrestling. We're talking about WrestleMania 39 nights 1 and 2 here on the YouTube channel. So, the good, the bad, and the ugly, we're going to talk about it in this video. Thank you guys again for checking out the video. I do remind you guys, since it's been a while since I've done a video on the wrestling channel, I do have a lot of free goodies for you down in the description box below. You can get free stocks from Webull. You get free stocks from Robinhood. It's basically free money. If you get the stocks and you sell them, you know, you can get anywhere up to $34 to $100 worth of free stocks from those platforms. So check out the links below. Also, if you're into crypto, and you really want to get your crypto off of online so you don't lose all your money in some crazy shutdown of some bank, you can get a ledger. And a lot of people have asked about this. A lot of people don't know about it. You can get a ledger. Look at the links down below to take your crypto offline if you are investing in that space. But let's talk now about WrestleMania. And again, let's start with the bad. We're going to start with the bad on nights 1 and 2. And if you're a person, by the way, who doesn't like hearing negative things about your precious WWE or your precious whatever company it is, you can go ahead and skip forward to the next chapter. I'm chaptering these out so you don't have to get triggered. But we're going to talk about the negatives. So the first with the negatives is, and first and foremost for me, was there's so much sponsorship and ad placement and product placement in these two shows. It is absolutely jarring. Now, look, I understand why it is. I have been a person who I always advocated back in the day. I was like, well, WrestleMania should be like the Super Bowl, where you get these, like the Super Bowl commercials is a big thing and there's a lot of money spent. WrestleMania, WWE could do the same thing with WrestleMania and sell advertising, and they have done that now since moving to Peacock. I'm all fine with that. I have no problem with that for WrestleMania. The problem is that they really went overboard with it. A couple things in particular, if you notice during the show, there'd be times where there wasn't much happening in the ring, but you hear like large portions of the crowd cheer and boo. And that was because apparently on the big screens, which when you're in a stadium like that with 80,000 people, you can't see the ring and see all the stuff you would see by watching it at home or being in an arena that's for 10, 15,000 people. You can't see that much. So the crowd is relying on the screens, and they would show advertisements on the screens instead of the matches, and people would boo, and then they cheer when the advertisements went away and they could continue watching the match on the screen. There's things like the Cinnamon Toast Crunch sponsorship of the Rey Mysterio, Dominik Mysterio match, which is supposed to be this blood feud between father and son and very serious, and you got, these smiley Cinnamon Toast Crunch characters in the background and on the ring posts and stuff. It was a bit, they went overboard with it. They really went overboard with the sponsorships this year. The biggest one for me personally, though, that kind of took me out of it is they've done this thing now where they're putting in a minute of commercials between the pre-match promo package, which gets you all excited for the match, and then it ends, and then there's a TurboTax commercial, and then following that, which they're going to make a lot of money from TurboTax because WrestleMania happens right before the end of tax season every year, so it makes sense for them to do it. But do I want a TurboTax commercial between the pre-match promo and the entrances of the match? And of course, we know why they do that, because that is probably, the metrics probably show that that's probably one of the highest viewership retention periods of the shows, is most viewers are always watching the pre-match promos and the entrances. It's WWE. That's what a lot of the people are there to watch. That's what they get off on. So let's put a commercial in between those two and maximize. We can charge more for them. So that's why they did it. To me, it was overkill, and I know some people thought, hey, they should do it because blah, 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 but there's a big difference. There's a way to do it and not have it be jarring. But you have to remember, the real customer is not the fans. The real customer are the advertisers and the sponsors. And if you don't believe me, Triple H laid it out in the post-media scrum on night 1, where he said this.
Also, do absolutely want to thank Snickers because it satisfies. And to our amazing partners that we brought with us along the way for this week, we were able to break our all-time WrestleMania sponsorship record with over 21 million in activations. So, really an awesome week for everybody.
So make note of that. If we look at last year's WrestleMania gate revenue for any kind of benchmark for this, last year they pulled about $6.5 to $8.5 million on the gate for each night for that amount of people in attendance. So compare that to the $21 million that Triple H said that they're getting from the sponsors. That's over 3 times the amount of money roughly than they're getting from the gate. And again, this is on Peacock. It's not a $49.99 pay-per-view. So the overwhelming majority of their money is coming from the sponsors. And keep this in mind as we talk about some of the other negatives later on in the review. As far as the match quality and stuff, my least favorite matches, John Cena and Austin Theory, which the match was okay. It wasn't anything special, and John Cena was never known except for this brief period of time in the mid 2010s for wrestling really good matches. But most of his career he didn't. But even still, he's been out of the ring. He hasn't been a regular wrestler, so I wasn't expecting some great match here. But it felt like for the star power that John Cena, the guy that was the face of the company for at least 12 years, him coming back and dropping a match to a young and up-and-coming superstar, I feel, for me, it felt like it should have felt bigger. It didn't feel as a big deal as it was, probably because we all expected Austin Theory to win this match. But this isn't like The Rock coming back to face Cena, for instance. This isn't even last year with Stone Cold coming back. This is kind of like, okay, it's Cena. I feel like for a guy with the legacy that he has at WWE, this should have felt more special. The women's Fatal 4-Way tag match on night 2 was the worst match of the week. That actually was a pretty bad match. You can tell how bad it was because they cut out of the post-match as quickly as they could because they didn't want to linger on that match. I kind of hesitate to say that this was a bad match. It wasn't really a bad match, but it just wasn't. It wasn't special. It was the 6-man with Lita and Trish and Becky Lynch against Damage Control. It was okay, but the crowd wasn't really into most of it. It was cool to see Lita and Trish though. Trish doing her spots was pretty awesome, and the finish was okay, but it was just an okay match. Brock Lesnar and Omos. I tuned in to night 2 right at the end of that match, and I caught Brock Lesnar giving the F5 to Omos and pinning him. And that's when I turned on the show. And I was like, yeah, that's about as much as I really needed to see of that match because the match it never was going to be much of anything. It didn't expect it to be much of anything. And that's pretty much, it was a great feat of strength to see Brock lifting up somebody the size of Omos and doing that. It's a WrestleMania moment. But that's all we needed out of that. And the Hell in a Cell match, Finn Balor versus Edge, Brood Edge, rated R superstar version of Edge. This is the funny thing about it. They had the whole Brood Edge promo at the beginning. It was dripping with blood. It was kind of telling. They're going into a Hell in a Cell match. They got rid of the reddish orange cell now, and it's back to the proper Hell in a Cell. You're like, all right, let's see what's going on here. Finn Balor gets to do the demon the right way at WrestleMania, which I've always wanted to see that demon entrance at WrestleMania. It was an okay demon entrance. And the match was started out pretty good, but then about halfway through, Edge hits Finn Balor with a flying ladder. There's reasons for this. And Finn bleeds because he gets hit, and it's a ladder thrown to your face. Sometimes accidents happen. He gets busted open. But this is WWE. So they stop the match. Edge has got to buy time by acting like he's looking for new weapons and pulling out tables and flipping up the ring apron, and he's just buying time while the doctors come in and a lot of the crowd starts booing because apparently they stapled the cut shut and they put in a coagulant or a numbing agent, depending on the reports you're hearing, to stop the bleeding for Finn. So then they continue the match, but by this point the match had lost the momentum. And then at that point, it's kind of like it's a Hell in a Cell match and you're stopping it for blood. I made the joke that, well, this confirms that Jon Moxley's not going back to WWE anytime soon. That's what Hell in a Cell was originally supposed to be. That's what you think of when you hear, oh, Hell in a Cell. We still think of it that way, even though we know it's not like that anymore. You still think Hell in a Cell is going to be brutal. The most they did is Edge's face got pressed against the cage, and they did the spot that the New Day and the Usos did a couple years ago where they, Finn got trapped by some red and blue colored kendo sticks in the corner of the cell. And, it's because of this stuff that's why you need the kendo sticks and you need the chairs and the ladders and all that stuff in these matches anyway, because it's not enough to have a Hell in a Cell. You need to have all this other stuff and something slightly higher for Finn to jump off of to hit a table spot. And it dawned on me, and probably dawned on a lot of people whose brains don't turn off just because they see a WWE logo, that what is the point of the Hell in a Cell then? If there's not going to be any blood, if you're not really going to use the cell as a weapon, they could have done this match without the cell. You don't need the cell. Nobody's falling off the top of it. Nobody's going through it. That's what Hell in a Cell is known for. That's what its legacy. And it dawned on me again, there's a reason. It's the person that they're concerned with is this Hell in a Cell match is not you, the wrestling fan who wants to see a brutal feud-ending match between two guys who are in this blood feud. It's to sell a Hell in a Cell toy to kids, and it's also because you can't have blood in it because, again, you, the wrestling fan, is not the customer that they're concerned with, because WWE is not a business-to-consumer company anymore. It is a business-to-business business model, and again, like I said before, the customer is the sponsors. This customer are the advertisers, not you, the wrestling fan. In fact, you are part of the product.
Also, do absolutely want to thank Snickers because it satisfies.
Snoop Dogg and The Miz are the host of the show, and they did a pretty good job the first night. They brought back Pat McAfee. That was a great moment. Pat McAfee beating the crap out of The Miz. That was hilarious. Snoop Dogg egging it on. So the second night, they try to run it back, and there's a little contention between Snoop and Miz because of what happened the night before, but now Snoop brings out Shane McMahon, gets a big pop. Shane comes in, thanks the crowd. He's almost got a tear in his eye. And then him and The Miz have an impromptu match, but very early on, Shane is trying to do leapfrogs and drop downs, and then he winds up injuring himself. I'm not sure what the exact injury is. And you can see they're trying to continue with the match. It's just not working. It looked really bad. And Shane is injured. And they have to do an audible. And Snoop comes in, which I think this probably would have been the conclusion after the Shane Miz match, that Snoop would have done a move or something. But they just kind of pushed it up and then say, okay, Snoop, just do what you're supposed to do. Knock out the Miz, hit the people's elbow or the gangsta elbow or the doggy elbow, whatever you want to call it, which the running of the ropes looked terrible. We've seen Snoop do a splash in AEW that looked bad, and now this running of the ropes looked bad, but the elbow itself was okay. And he did the gangsta elbow on the Miz and got the pin. So Snoop Dogg, yeah, for shizzle, my dog, I got a pin on the Miz at WrestleMania. So Snoop got a pin at WrestleMania. Snoop is now officially in the record books as having a win at WrestleMania. That's pretty cool. So those are the major negatives. I'm going to get to the main event later on. The positives, though, did outweigh the negatives, at least on night one. Night one was phenomenal. The four-way with the tag teams was fantastic. I did mention the Rey Mysterio match with Dominik. Outside of the Cinnamon Toast Crunch stuff, the match itself, Dominik's entrance, turning this one night he spent in county lockup into this whole thing where he's like some hardened criminal, and he's coming to the ring, and in the paddy wagon with the handcuffs on, and these police escorting him to the ring because he's done a hard time now. It's so hilarious. Dominik has become one of the best heels in WWE right now, and Rey's entrance with Snoop coming in, with the lowrider coming out to Ain't Nothing But a G thing, and then to Eddie Guerrero's Lie, Cheat, and Steal theme, and then of course the 619 theme. That was all cool. The match was really good. The interaction with the mother and the sister outside the ring was really good. You had the LWO coming out. You had Bad Bunny interfering in the match. The Judgment Day were involved in the match. There was a lot of stuff in this match. Maybe a little bit overbooked, but that's what this match needed. Rey did get the win. I did note that this is the only time in America in 2023 you see a parent spank their child and actually get cheered and not have a bunch of people protesting about it. I don't even think you can show a child getting spanked in movies anymore. But WWE, they can still pull it off. So they did that. That match was great. Logan Paul and Seth Rollins was great. They even brought KSI into it to do a spot. That was pretty fun. And, in the news this past week, John Morrison, Johnny Nitro, Johnny Mundo, he did take a little bit of a swipe at the Logan Paul phenomenon, saying, well, Logan Paul gets to rehearse his matches for a month with Shawn Michaels. If you're not good rehearsing a match for a month with Shawn Michaels, something's wrong. But Logan, I don't think you can take that away from Logan Paul's ability, though. He is an athletic guy. He's got an eye and a look and a mind for the wrestling business. I can't take that away from him. He's not Snoop Dogg. We saw what a bad celebrity athleticism in the ring is. He's not, this isn't David Arquette or anything like that. So I can't totally throw shade at Logan Paul. He does, as a celebrity wrestler, he's probably one of the best in history. So I'm going to give him credit for that. Rhea Ripley and Charlotte was the match of the weekend for me. That match was absolutely fantastic. I think a lot of people are going to have different opinions about what the best match of the weekend was. This is definitely a match of the year contender. Rhea Ripley winning the women's championship, avenging the loss from a couple years ago during the pandemic, WrestleMania. A great match. Flair was wonderful in this match. Rhea was wonderful in this match. I did say that since Rhea is the only person at Judgment Day that won a match this weekend, that she should be the de facto leader of Judgment Day now. Plus, she's a champion. So there you go. The main event of night one, absolutely phenomenal too. The Usos defending the tag titles against Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. Absolutely wonderful. Had the best. I mean, they really, really got over Sami as a babyface. This is what Sami Zayn does well. Sympathetic babyface. The Usos beat the living tar out of him in most of this match. 75% of this match was the Usos beating up Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. But Owens' heart, Owens' determination and spitefulness against the bloodline, and Sami Zayn's heart kept them from losing this match, when several times in this match they probably should have lost. We got a perfect finish for this. Kevin Owens gets the hot tag to Sami. Jay's in the corner. Sami finally gets to hit the haluva kick on Jay. He does it once, says something to Jay, hits a second haluva kick. Jimmy comes in, tries to interfere. Kevin Owens gets the interception, hits a stunner, one more haluva kick, and Sami Zayn pins Jey Uso and becomes the new Undisputed Tag Team Champions, the first crack in the bloodline, and things are looking up. Then we get to night two. Covered the bad about night two. The best thing about night two, I would say, Asuka and Bianca Belair was a really good match. I love their entrances. By the way, production-wise, the one thing that I don't think anybody can honestly disagree with and say WWE is the best at in the wrestling, sports entertainment industry is the staging. The stage, the setup, their production quality is fantastic, and it has to be. WWE is blockbuster wrestling, much like a blockbuster movie. It's big, it's expensive. It's like a big blockbuster movie. If you're going to do CGI and all this stuff, in a big blockbuster Disney movie or Marvel movie or whatever, it better be really good CGI, because if it's not, people are going to let you know about it. So WWE being blockbuster wrestling, that their production quality with all of that stuff and the pyro and the lights and the lasers and all the entrances with the cool fire effects, and Bianca had a trope of young gymnastics doing some pretty cool. I thought that was really cool. That really encapsulated Bianca's character. Asuka's entrance was amazing. Some of the best entrances, just to touch on that for a second. Edge's entrance was fantastic. Charlotte's entrance was fantastic. Roman's entrance was fantastic. There's a bunch of them on this show. And again, that's what WWE is about. It's about entrances, and it's about the spectacle and the stage. They always have that on point. Fortunately, this year we got a good 5 or 6 really damn good matches and a couple of match of the year contenders. But I wouldn't say Bianca and Asuka was a match of the year contender, but it was a damn solid match. It had a hard time following what Charlotte and Rhea did the night before, but Bianca retained her women's championship. Some people felt Asuka should have won, but I'm cool with it either way. Both of those, I love both of those wrestling characters. I think Asuka's fantastic. I think Bianca Belair is fantastic. So no complaints from me on that one. The IC title match, which I am now dubbing this as Gunther and Sheamus and Drew McIntyre have introduced something I wanted to see WWE do with its big guys for a long time, and that is a WWE version of Strong Style. If there ever was a WWE version of Strong Style, it is this match, this triple threat match with Gunther, Sheamus, and Drew McIntyre. They just were beating the crap out of each other. It was fantastic. It was wonderful. It is one of my favorite matches of this year, one of my favorite matches of the weekend. Gunther coming off the top rope to break up the pin with Sheamus and McIntyre at the end, and then powerbombing Sheamus onto Drew, then picking Drew up and powerbombing him to get the win and retain the IC title. I am so happy to see Walter, who, those of us who are in the pro wrestling world would have known Walter for a long time. We knew how great he was when he was in the UK Indies and everywhere else. And him being in WWE, and he lost all that weight and he's trimmed down, but he's still Walter. He's now Gunther, but whatever. Absolutely fantastic. He's one of those great success stories coming from outside of WWE into WWE. They've done right by him. And this match was phenomenal. The main event, what we all thought was going to be the crowning of Cody Rhodes. This big, long story. There's so much path into this main event. Cody, started his own company that was supposed to be an audience for him, and he got booed by that audience. Roman was handed the WWE audience, and for years people booed him. Both of them have overcome those periods and now have found the right formula for them as wrestlers, as characters, where they feel like they're doing the right thing. There's more patent to this match with the history of the Rhodes and McMahon families that goes back decades. The fact that, of course, all the bloodline storyline for the last 9 months ties into this. Cody leaving WWE, starting AEW, coming back to WWE as the first major defection from AEW to WWE, which a lot of people have said, and now with a year removed from it now, I will say that probably was the first nail in the coffin. Well, not a nail in the coffin, but that was the first big indication of an eventual downward turn for AEW, which has been continuing to this day. I would say that's probably the case. And all the other stuff tied into this match. A lot was baked into here. Cody now going for a championship his father didn't do. This is very similar to a spot he did that kind of kicked off All Elite Wrestling when he did All Out. At that moment, he was fighting one of the best NWA champions, Nick Aldis. And he did it because he wanted the championship that his father did have. Now he's fighting one of the best WWE champions of all time in Roman Reigns, going for a championship his dad didn't have. Like I said, these stories are very parallel. They're very similar, not the same. They're very similar. So all that's packed into this. Everybody's expecting Cody to win this match. Cody comes to the ring. He's got Brandy there. He's got his daughter there, that was pretty awesome. His mom is there, and a young kid there that turned out to be contracted AEW talent -1. Yes, Brody Lee, John Huber's son, was in attendance with Brandy and Dustin's mother. That was pretty cool. It was shocking to see that. It was pretty cool. He gets the weight belt from Cody, which eventually winds up in the hands of Solo Sikoa. So maybe -1 did a heel spot there and turned on Cody and gave the belt over to Solo. I think Solo took it from him. Anyway, Roman comes out to this pianos and this great entrance. He's just so much presence with Roman Reigns now. His entrance music sounds. This is, again, I've said it before. This is what they always said Roman Reigns was, and now he's finally grown into being that character. So you have two characters now who have grown into what they should be, what they wanted to be, what they were supposed to be. They're meeting in this big epic match at the main event at WrestleMania. A couple of boos for Cody, but that kind of died away as the match went on. He was definitely the babyface in this match. And the match itself was good. It was, some people may say it was overbooked. I think for this match, you had to have the run-ins. I mean, this is a storyline match. This is not Omega versus, Okada. This is not Steamboat versus Savage. This is going to be a match that's going to have run-ins because the storyline reaches out beyond just these two guys to a bunch of other people. And sure enough, we got the run-ins. We got Solo Sikoa hitting Cody several times before he did something really boneheaded and took the weight belt and smacked Cody in the back with the referee's back turn. But the referee, showing a rare moment of referee clarity, he perks up and I heard that. And he turns around and looks at Solo and says, I heard it. I see the belt. I know what you did. You're out of here. So he ejects Solo, right? Later on, there's a ref bump. The Usos come out. They hit the 1D on Cody and a couple super kicks and try to pull Roman over. But here come the new tag champs, Sami and Kevin. They come in and then they start beating up Roman. Kevin hits the stunner on Roman. Sami hits the haluva kick, and then it's pretty much even at this point. So the match continues. By the way, Paul Heyman, absolutely fantastic. The Paul Heyman's, his pep talk to Roman and his facial expressions during this match, Paul Heyman is a master. He might be eclipsing Bobby Heenan now, in my personal opinion. He may be eclipsing Bobby Heenan as one of my favorite managers of all time. But Heyman was greatness, as he always is. But the conclusion of this match, things really fell off the rail. Cody was in the corner. He was hit. It looks like he was rounding the corner to win the match. He hit one crossroads, hit a second crossroads, and then there was this awkward moment where they were kind of back positioning themselves in the corner because Heyman was distracting the referee. Solo Sikoa comes back out under a hood through the crowd, hits the spike on Cody in his throat, which allows Roman to get the win. And you could feel, once again, the air just being let out of the arena. I watched it, and I was like, no, they didn't. And something had told me earlier in the night, my cynical mind said, I wonder if they're going to have Roman win this match and Cody's not going to win. I don't think that's going to, that would be very cynical of me to think that they would do that. And they did it because WWE's gonna WWE. And despite Paul Levesque running the creative, Vince McMahon is still back there. And this felt like, this match was booked like a Vince McMahon match. It really seemed like a Vince McMahon match. This ending was a Vince McMahon ending. I would not be surprised if this was a Vince call. I don't know. It may have been Triple H's call. I don't know. None of us know. It just left a sour taste in everybody's mouth. And I think that you can only get away with this but so many times. They did this at Elimination Chamber when Sami didn't win. It's like, all right, well, we can kind of take that because Cody's obviously going to win at Mania. Now, Cody hasn't won. And Cody's whole story about finishing the story, that's a really interesting point because where do you go with this now? What does Cody do? Does Cody's star power now diminish? This was the whole point of him leaving AEW and coming to WWE is to win the WWE Championship in the main event at WrestleMania. Well, he didn't do that. So, okay, maybe we'll roll it back to him just winning the title. But when will that happen? And will fans want to see it now? Or will fans want to go back to seeing Sami Zayn winning the championship at SummerSlam? What does that do with Cody? What does it do with the bloodline that the Usos have lost the tag titles, but Roman retained the main championship, and it was because of Solo, not the Usos? I expect that the bloodline storyline is going to continue. Now, here's where I think in the aftermath that WWE really needs to be careful because they have been on a hot streak for about a year now. This bloodline storyline, and I would say the Judgment Day stuff too, those two storylines for me have been really holding up the company. Have been really good stuff. The in-ring's gotten a lot better. The Sheamus, Gunther, McIntyre stuff has been really good. But are we in a NWO situation here? And I say that because I remember this kind of felt to me like Starrcade 97 when after a year and a half build, Sting finally beat Hogan for the WCW Championship at Starrcade. Been building up to the thing for a year and a half. But they botched the match. We all famously know what happened at Starrcade 97. And then the next night, and I was at the Nitro the next night in Baltimore, it felt like they should have started a new chapter, new storylines. The NWO should have been dissolved, but it didn't happen. They just kind of kept going with the storyline. And it wasn't soon after that they had to start doing the Wolfpack and the Black and White, and the NWO kind of got diluted. I'm curious as to whether or not there is a ending plan for the Bloodline storyline, or they're just saying, well, you know what? It's working for us. We don't really have an ending in mind. Let's just kind of keep it going. Let's milk it. Now, some people might go, well, no, they have a storyline in mind. It is very possible that their thought is, we're just going to milk this and squeeze literally as much blood as we can out of this Bloodline storyline until the fans are sick of seeing it. I hope they're not going to do that. I hope there is a definitive ending to the storyline. We thought it was going to be here with Cody. Now we can get Roman to get to 1,000 days as world champion, which would be historic. And now, a lot of people said, well, then after that, he can lose the title. It's like, how much farther are we going to keep moving his goalposts? Well, when he faces Sami in Canada, that should be, okay, well, not that. It should be Cody at Mania. Okay, well, not that. Now Roman got to get to 1,000 days. Well, after that, then he can lose the title. Well, maybe not now, maybe SummerSlam. And then there might be a reason at SummerSlam he doesn't lose the title. And the Bloodline storyline just keeps going and going and going. They got to be careful that they don't wind up doing this again, like I said, with like the NWO and just like, well, that's our cash cow. We're just going to keep milking it and milking it and milking it. Because history has shown that if you do that, the fans are eventually going to turn on the storyline. But they're far away from that now. I do think there's still more life in the Bloodline storyline. Not much, but there's still life in it. But I want to know what you guys think. Me, overall, night one was clearly the better night. I think night one of WrestleMania this year was better, even though I really liked WrestleMania last year, was better than both nights of WrestleMania last year. But night two of this year was worse than anything they did last year and worse than night one. Again, the ending was left a sour taste in your mouth, and it wasn't as good as night one. So if you averaged them out, it was an okay to better WrestleMania. But it wasn't the greatest WrestleMania that people thought was going to be one of the best WrestleManias of all time after night one. night 2 kind of knocked that out. So I want to know what you guys again think. Let your voice be heard in the comment box below. If you like this video, please hit the like button, subscribe button, and the notification bell. And be sure to share this video on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and wherever you talk about pro wrestling and sports entertainment. I will be back here on the channel soon. I'm probably going to be sticking to mostly reviews on this channel from now on. So we have Sakura Genesis coming up. We've got a couple big AEW shows coming up. And of course, the next WWE pay-per-view from Puerto Rico, Backlash, coming up next month. So stay tuned for those reviews on the channel. And until then, I will see you guys here on the Rantin Review Pro Wrestling. Have a good day.